Now let me get to our panelists. Of course, there's so much coverage has been on the attacks in really across the world. We've seen it obviously in Australia, but Syria, Brown University, the foiled attempt right here in our own country. But in addition to all that, there are some other very notable items of news that have been taking place. And one of the things that we love to do on Mondays is to take a look at some of the weekend's headlines with our FRC panel of pundits. So here now to join me is Casey Harper with Washington Stand and Travis Weber, who's Vice President for Policy and Government Affairs. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us.
Great to have you.
All right, Travis, let me start with you. Some of the other news, the AI, artificial intelligence, a huge issue that's gaining a lot of discussion and talk these days. And we've got a little battle going on. Some states want to regulate AI in their states. Then you have the president who's wanting to regulate some of it from a federal perspective. I think the bottom line, we all know this is a potentially frightening area that needs some regulation. So let me toss out to you and get your thoughts.
Yeah, Jody. So the dynamic we have going on here involves the president wanting AI to continue to develop and for research and technology to keep pace with who he sees as competitors, the Chinese and others globally, as AI is increasingly becoming a national security issue in its role in defense, in addition to many other sectors of a nation's economy. So it's becoming almost like an all-inclusive tool for human development in the minds of many, right? So if you're looking at it that way, you're thinking it's number one priority to make sure that we advance in this area. On the flip side of that coin, however, are the stories that are coming out more and more now of youth who have, and adults too, but there's a lot of focus on children, the impact of technology and artificial intelligence on their development. But just look at these tragic stories of people becoming so immersed in technology that they're developing relationships with AI-generated characters online and starting to invest so much in those that they commit suicide when those relationships do not play out in their minds, do not play out reality as they've been playing out in their minds. And so this and other issues are what are leading many states to say, let's hold up here, let's slow this train a bit and say we need to take a closer look. There are voices speaking out on this at the federal level, including Senator Josh Hawley and others. But really, you have states who are saying we need to be careful about this, the path that we're walking down here. And we at Family Research Council, who want to defend male and female created in the image of God, the human dignity of the person, families, and the integrity of families, we agree with the concerns about the implications for the family and the human person when it comes to technology and AI. So that's basically the battle line here. Now, the news now is President Trump issued an executive order accelerating federal development and wanting to override these pesky state laws which stand in the way. Understandable when you look at the efficiency question in all of this. We as America, we have to look at the Constitution, the separation of powers, and the federalist system. And this is something that's going to be playing out in the question of AI development.
Yeah, it's an enormous issue. So, Casey, let me throw it over your way. I know you've been following this too. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, we've covered this a lot on the Outstanding podcast as well. Had different perspectives on to talk about this, the impact it has on the family in particular, which Travis mentioned is very real. And I think it's kind of telling that we have this cutting edge military technology that could be the thing that decides who prevails, U.S. and China, but also your 10-year-old daughter can access it in her pocket. And so this thing that's powerful enough to win a war is also accessible to children. And those two dueling motives are working here. You know, it reminds me, as far as the precedent, which you mentioned, it reminds me of 2017, I believe it was, when President Trump tried to, via executive order, put an end to sanctuary cities. And that went to the courts, and the courts ruled via the 10th Amendment that basically Congress would have to pass a law to do that. And so I think that there's going to be a lot of legal trouble on this in the courts for the president, because there's plenty of precedent of Congress putting restrictions on how states can regulate things. But via executive order, I think it's been a pretty tough sell to the courts. So this is something that is already states are going to challenge it, and I'm not sure how well he's going to fare.
Jody, I'll just say, too, thinking about this in historical terms, this reminds me of area of discussion that came up during the battle between the U.S. and the Soviet Union in the Cold War. And at that time, it was a real concern that the checks and balances in the United States would not allow us to keep pace with the authoritarian efficiency of the Soviet Union, which can steamroll anyone internally to achieve its external objectives. And we all see how that turned out. The Soviet Union collapsed, the entire communist world collapsed very quickly because it was hollow on the inside. And it's a warning, it's a note of caution to us today. If we as America think we can excel using external measures, just looking at the natural and just looking at what we want to accomplish on earth without remembering the spiritual and moral fiber underneath our country. This is a question that is going to arise on this AI issue again today.
No question about that. Well, let me switch gears a little bit too, because there's so many different items taking place. And Casey, I'll start with you on this. There's another area that's been getting a lot of attention over the weekend is some of the scandals that have taken place. And lawmakers on Capitol Hill are dealing with this, but I'm speaking specifically the high-profile gambling issues that are surfacing right now, and even some bipartisan support to address some of this.
That's right. We're seeing bipartisan support in the Senate to begin to curtail this explosion in online gambling in particular. I mean, casinos have been around for a long time, but the geography and just the need to get up and go out of your house to go there has sort of kept what we've known for a long time can be addictive. It's kept it at bay. But now when you combine the addictive nature of gambling with the addictive nature of smartphones, and we all know how addictive smartphones are, even without adding on some other vice like gambling or pornography, or even social media is very addictive as well. So you start combining these and you're getting points, and if you combine social media with gambling, it's become very addictive. And the research, this is from Siena, says that half of young men ages 18 to 49 have an active online sports betting account. So if you see two young men walking around, one of them has an active account. It's exploded. If you watch sports, you see the ads for it everywhere. But what are the outcomes? And we kind of have this intuitive sense that gambling is bad for people. It destroys communities, Native American reservations like languish because of this stuff. But here's a 2021. This was published in peer review, very respected journal. They did a large study, and it said this. I just found this excerpt I thought was very interesting. It says gambling is associated with higher financial distress. Imagine that. Lower financial inclusion and planning, negative lifestyle, health, well-being, and leisure outcomes. Gambling is associated with higher rates of future unemployment and physical disability, and at the highest levels with a substantially increased mortality.
Wow.
So it's on the soul level, it's cancerous in a way that I don't think we fully understand. And the states and the government officials who are tasked with regulating it have a perverse incentive, because the very ones who are tasked with regulating it talk a lot about the tax revenue that they're going to get from allowing it to happen. And so this is something I'm glad to see bipartisan attention on it, because it's a major problem. It's widespread. Half of young men have one. This is not something we can ignore.
Yeah, absolutely. And that brings up, Travis, when you were talking even about AI a little while ago, you brought into it the role, the impact that could have on the family. Well, no question, this gambling issue, likewise, what Casey was just talking about, enormous impact on families. So what needs to be done with this?
Yeah, I mean, just speaking of the impact, we can see the effect, the magnifying effect of that technology and the smartphone, the computer will have on an issue like gambling. When in the former years we had places like Las Vegas and Atlantic City, New Jersey. Atlantic City, New Jersey is it's like a ghost town, relatively speaking, compared to what it used to be as a gambling hub, because the focus has shifted online. And so, Jody, I think on this issue, what needs to be done is for the reality of the ugly underbelly to be exposed. This cannot be seen as something that's harmless, innocuous. It's kind of almost winked at or joked at when discussed. It's like, oh yeah, no, I was out at the casino doing this and that. Well, when that sort of lighthearted approach is taken, it prevents people from seeing the evil, the harm that comes out from within, right? And we're not talking about people gathering in their home and betting $5 each other among friends as they play a game of cards. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the casinos and the organizations and businesses behind online gambling, which there's a reason they have so much money. Mm-hmm. And the reason is the system is predatory. It's designed to be that way. It's designed to extract and almost like human strip mining, pull away the resources from these human subjects to enrich the corporations behind them. That is problematic, and that should not be.
Absolutely.
It's not the recipe for a healthy society.
It's a great word picture there for that. Before we run out of time, while I've got you, Travis, another bizarre story to me that we're looking at. The Wall Street Journal, I believe, came out with this, but we're seeing with surrogacy, the Chinese trying to make a huge effort to have U.S.-born babies.
Yeah.
What's going on here?
Yeah, so it's a bizarre story in the Wall Street Journal about billionaires in China having 100 or more children, and these are multiple Chinese individuals who will have the money to pay, and the system in the United States is available, often in secret, to support this as people are being enriched off of the desire of these men to have all these children for different motives, and some of those are not stated. It might be, deception going on as well, but in the minds of some of them, for example, one wants to just have children to select from to take over his business one day, and others just want this to be having all these children in the United States to gain U.S. citizenship with a member of their family, because, as you know, the birthright citizenship issue in the news again with President Trump's executive order, which we don't know if it will apply to all these cases, but taking advantage of the fact that if a baby's born on U.S. soil, they're automatically a U.S. citizen. So it's a bizarre story. What I think needs to happen here, again, is light to be brought and attention to be brought to what is happening here. And again, Jody, we see a theme of technology intersecting humanity, right? Children are supposed to come from a mother and a father in the bond of marriage. And here where people are using surrogacy and all sorts of technologically driven practices to almost, quote unquote, have a baby across continents, that's not the family that we see in Genesis 1 and 2 as God designed it. So we need to return to God's design, and we need to be scrutinizing anything that looks like it's departing from God's design and asking the question, is it the best for our society? Clearly, there are many problems here, not only for the family, but national security implications as well, when we don't know what is happening with regard to Chinese having children through surrogates on U.S. soil. We do know from the story the FBI was interviewing some of the people involved in this process, which that alone should tell us we need to be taking a closer look at what's happening here.
It is absolutely bizarre. Casey, let me come back to you. We were talking about this earlier in the program with you specifically about these 18,000 or so, plus or minus, known or suspected terrorists who are in the country. We didn't have time to finish that conversation, so let me give you an opportunity to wrap up some of your thoughts where you were taking us.
Sure. I think that it's important to understand that the policies to keep the southern border, which were pitched as being which were pitched as being so compassionate, actually have real-world consequences that are not compassionate at all. And so whenever Christians in particular, we can be very susceptible to arguments made in the name of compassion, there has to be wisdom that comes in and says, okay, we want to be compassionate, we want to be kind to people, of course, but what is wise? Where are people coming from? Do they share our worldview? Do they, how many are coming? Are they assimilating? These are the kind of wisdom questions we need to be asking and not be guilted into making decisions or guilted into silence because of an argument made on compassion, which I think is what happened under the Biden administration.
Yeah. And Travis, probably 45 seconds, but let me just kick off of this. I know you've got a heart for international individuals and so forth. We all do, but you particularly are leading the charge on that. There's got to be a balance between security and allowing people in our country.
Yeah, so a country has the right to control its borders. Without that, among other things, it's not really a country. It can't be defined as a secure country. And so that has to be looked at when it comes to the identity of the country. But I think the America needs to continue to walk in its identity as a beacon of hope and liberty and a place of refuge for those seeking freedom from persecution globally. We know Christians are being heavily persecuted around the world. So we believe the United States should remain that place when they're vetted. But we should welcome Christians from all places and others who are truly persecuted on account of their religion and welcome them to our shores to live as part of the American experiment.
Casey Harper, Travis Weber, great having you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks,